what's the big question people have? Like, what's the thing everybody's wondering about? What's the thing I don't understand? What would I want to hear?
It's like, that speaks Darklighter's home. So how did you know? Because I'm a nerd.
Cassie and Jim on the beach, and people are like, no. I can literally hear people that are no.
Because Darth Vader was the scariest thing that had ever happened to anybody, and this guy literally looks like the devil.
What are you doing, C-3PO? I'm taking one last look at my friends. These aren't your friends.
And I get a later call that said, yeah, you probably want to use Wedge Antilles.
That spirit of doing everything they can to tell the story they want to tell, I think really comes through on Star Wars.
You look it up. There is no try.
I joke that the best thing about writing Princess Leia is everybody knows who she is, and the worst thing about writing Princess Leia is everyone knows who she is.
It doesn't look like they're even hungry when they get out. They're not just like, did you bring a Snickers or something?
I'm honored to be here. I'm also impressed that you got Zach Galifianakis as a guest tonight.
That's so funny.
I've always been kind of a closet Star Wars fan up until, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
I'm just sort of a fan helping to bring other fans along. That's all I'm doing.
The galaxy isn't growing to push people out. It's growing to let more people come in and find their love so that it's able to continue and create this connective tissue that grows forever.
Where now I feel like I can't do that because somebody's going to turn it into a blog post and then it's going to become a whole thing.
I have had the best time ever on Around the Galaxy.
Coming back to a show that I dearly love and admire, so thanks for having me.
Well, grace, peace, and welcome to Podcast of the Whills. Happy Wednesday night. We are hanging out. We are recording another episode that is going to drop in the audio feed here in another couple of weeks. We've actually, little peek behind the curtain for you patrons who are watching. Pete and I are kind of on a roll right now of banking up some episodes. We've been doing some extra recording when we can, getting some stuff in the can, which is awesome because that allows us the time and the freedom to edit our episodes well as just feel confident in knowing we've got content coming up for the next several weeks and not that pressure of like, holy cow, we need to record. So I'm excited to be here with you on a Wednesday night. I know Jeff is hanging out. Matt is hanging out. I actually think Pete is watching as well. Any of the patrons, as always, thank you so much for supporting Pete and I and ATG Cast and all the things that we love to do in creating this content, creating this channel, these interviews, and of course, streaming Star Wars on Friday night, all that good stuff. I don't have to pitch it to you because you're here. And if you're watching this, you already support us. So thank you. That's all I'm going to say. I am excited tonight to record this interview. We tried to do this a little while back and I had to reschedule. I had some life kid nonsense going on and had to cancel and reschedule. So it's taken us a minute to get it together. But I am excited to talk tonight to Brandon. You may know Brandon more formally on Twitter or TikTok as Darth Choco. I've seen him on a bunch of other shows. He has called in with us on Friday nights to participate in streaming Star Wars. Always love what he has to say. Love the positivity, the joy that he brings to the content that he creates, not only Star Wars, Marvel, all the different things that are out. So I'm really excited for this conversation, and we are going to jump right into it with Brandon, aka Darth Choco.
Hello,
Brandon. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little intimidated. I forgot how many heavy hitters you have in that opening crawl, and whew, I'm among them. I don't know why.
It's good stuff. You are among them. You are among them, and I'm happy to have you. Like I said, we had to reschedule this from a month or so ago, and I've been looking forward to hanging out and having this conversation. So as we jump in, and kind of the first thing that we do is tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your channel, the places that you create content, kind of the 411 on who Brandon is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Brandon, also known as Darth Choco. So you can find me, Darth Choco, on TikTok was where I got my start. I'm trying to do a lot more YouTube content. I'm also on a podcast that is called Dyad in the Force, and it's Saturdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you formerly knew me from the High Ground podcast, can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually stopped at the High Ground podcast last week was the final episode.
Okay.
Because I want to focus my content elsewhere. I'll probably come back with another with another show.
Sure.
But yeah, just love hanging out, talking Star Wars, and being a huge geek. It's the thing
Hey,
to do. It's
it's
wild
the
to think
best.
how cool it is to do now, and how much we had to do this in the basement in the past. You know.
That's right. That's right. In the old days, like, I talk about this a lot. Is certainly with my show, started out in 2017, and it was, trying to coordinate with my former co-host over like Zoom or Skype even, and like schedules. We lived in different towns, and it was very traditional. Like, okay, we have to click yes, and we both count down so that we can start recording at the same time. And it was so complicated, and there were so many steps that we had to do just to get an episode out. And when we finally did, like, it was this huge undertaking. And now, like, I can basically produce a TV show from a computer in the corner of my garage. And I'm very thankful for those advancements, but it's neat how it has also been able to bring people together and bring people like us to have fun conversations and get to expand, like you said, these geeky, nerdy little worlds that we all love so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, it's and that's kind of the reasons why I stopped doing the High Ground podcast, because that one I would bring on 3 or 4 different creators every single week, and we talk about a different topic or whatever. But wrangling 4 to 5 different people every single week, whew, I made it like 135 episodes. So I think that's good, but
that's huge. That's impressive.
Pull it back a minute.
That's right. It's a lot of work. You got to have room to breathe. Well, let's talk about this. We say on this show, and Pete says on Around the Galaxy all the time, it kind of begins and ends with Star Wars. So we start our journey there, and then wherever we end up kind of in the middle of our conversation is, a thing. And then we circle back to Star Wars. Tell us about your Star Wars origins, where you first saw it, how it first came into your life, what it was that struck you whenever you first got to meet this world. Because I'm pretty sure I'm a decent amount older than you, but we all find Star Wars in different ways. What is your Star Wars origin story?
Yeah, so I don't tell my age often because I've been told I have a baby face. I was born in '87.
Okay.
So I'm a child of the special editions. But even before that, my mom was kind of a closet nerd, didn't really talk about it, didn't advertise it. But yeah, my mom, I remember having a VHS tape of The Empire Strikes Back, the original version.
Yep.
Where the Emperor is it's a chimp mask with goggles and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I watched that until it was destroyed. Right. I couldn't tell you what it was about. I was little enough that the cave scene terrified me.
Sure.
But yeah, between that and the Labyrinth, I watched tons of puppet things that just horrified me forever. So it's always been part of my life. So it's yeah, there's never been a time without it. It wasn't until
you would've...
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was kind of following that train of thought, but you would have been that right age that to come up with the special editions, to come up through, the special editions were only a couple of short years before the prequels. And so that would have also been prime, or early teenage years as you got the prequels and moved on from there. Was there much in between your discovering Star Wars and when the prequels started giving us movies again, where you found any of the books or comics, something that you encountered as a kid, or was that something later?
I encountered some of it. I was especially obsessed with the video game side of things. To this day, I will take anyone on Masters of Terracossi.
Love it.
I'm an Ardenlin main, and don't at me. But no, I did discover some of the books in early comics, but I read them a lot more casually. I was a huge Star Wars fan, but at that time I was a bigger Spider-Man fan. So that's kind of what had me at that moment in time. But yeah, it's interesting growing up at that time because I had the other thing to consider is that in my family, I had a sister that's 2 years older than me and an uncle that lived in our house that was 2 years older than her. So I'm
Okay.
also getting the older viewpoint of things
Right.
as I'm growing up as well, which is has given me an interesting perspective on how generational Star Wars has been.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to that in a little bit because that kind of fits with one of the topics that I want us to get into. And so I love that about the video game piece. And I love that you bring up Masters of Terrascasi because I definitely played that in college, PS2 mode, having that game and being like, holy crap, like there's a Star Wars game that is Street Fighter or it was almost more like Tekken with the graphics and whatever.
Yeah.
But I loved that. And it feels so niche for like when people bring it up, you're like, holy crap, you played that too. Like it wasn't as widespread as, Dark Forces. Not Dark
Like
Forces.
Jedi Outcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Like some of those other games, or, Force Unleashed or anything like that.
I still maintain Jedi Academy is still top tier.
Yeah. Well, and I also had a weird blackout period with the video games because like as a kid, I had the 8-bit Nintendo game, playing the Super Star Wars on the SNES, and then like
hardest game of all time.
It's so hard. It's still so hard. I tried playing it on one of the emulators and I got really mad and quit really quickly. I was like, I still can't play this game. But then to have that jump, and I'm pretty sure I was even out of college by the time I actually played, Terrascasi and, found some of those other games that I missed, in the in-between period. But I love that video games are another doorway into Star Wars. We talk a lot of times about how people find Star Wars, and, my kids would have found it through Rebels or Clone Wars or something. And video games is one of those overlooked modes sometimes where you're like, yeah, that's a great way to dive in. The Pod Racer game, like that was huge for so many people when, the prequels came out.
I have friends who played the Lego Star Wars game before they'd ever seen a single movie. And that's how they got into it. It's and all those people have wildly different viewpoints depending on when.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that so much. And it reminds me of our friend Claire that's on the Imperial Senate podcast. Part of her story is she talks about she really discovered Star Wars because she also had an older brother and he had the toys. And like she just started playing with his toys. And then one day she was like, wait, what do you mean there's movies that go with this too? Like the movies weren't a factor until somebody brought it to her attention. So I love that video games is a big part of how you found Star Wars and made those connections. So you go through Star Wars, you go through prequels, you go through, coming up through the different eras and phases of life that you get in. And then at some point you decide to become a content creator. And, what was that? I know you do stuff that's not just Star Wars. Tell us a little bit about that journey and your content creation and where, what led you to that, and certainly Star Wars' influences on that.
Yeah, I and sorry, she sometimes just cries out for attention. So.
That's okay. For anybody who's listening on the podcast, there's a dog on the screen now, and it's way better than anything I have to say. So, but we're gonna try our best.
It's funny because I had been in the books, and comics and stuff, and was obsessed with SWTOR for a while, and that really got me caught up on a lot of the media. Sure. And so, we were in the early days where we were waiting for, the sequels and stuff to come out. And I really started, becoming part of the community, watching, a lot of stuff and podcasts. I had a job that was just straight physical labor. So I had headphones in 24/7. That, and I was a power lifter at the time. So same thing. And, power through every podcast you could think of, every audiobook you could think of. And then, I start listening to people talk about things, and I'm like, that can't happen. That was covered in this book. And
that's
right. And after a while, I was like, you know what? I really just need to start making content. And I held that. And the name Darth Choco, formerly Darth Chocolate, I've been planning to use that for 6 years before I ever made a single video. And one day I was just like, screw it. I was I actually left. No, I didn't leave just yet. I was working in the financial industry, and things with COVID was popping off. I live in the U.S. Things politically at that time
Right.
were also popping off. It was an uncomfortable time for myself, and so I started making content just to help keep my own sanity, you know.
Sure.
And it was May 3rd, 2020 was the first video I ever made, and I posted it on TikTok.
Okay.
And that video got like 300,000 views, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be easy." No, that's not a regular thing.
Famous last words.
But that's where I started, and it's just been a lot of fun. You know, there was at that time that whole fan base felt very disconnected. There's a lot of craziness and negativity and grifters out there.
Sure.
Saying things that we all just know aren't true.
Right.
And it irritated me, and I was like, someone has to like say the stuff that's correct. And then I had a Thanos moment where I was like, fine, I'll do it myself, and hopped in there and started.
I love that, and I love watching your videos. And even though, as I say in my TikTok bio, I'm really too old for TikTok, but I'm not old enough to be anywhere else. So I find myself, scrolling and watching videos, and of course the algorithm populates, Star Wars stuff and whatever. And so you had actually come across my radar, I think, on Twitter before even TikTok, just because I spend much more time on Twitter and, the podcasting community that we've all kind of built there. But the thing that I love consistently, a couple of the things I love is even when you are, addressing an issue, like you said, facing the grifters, dealing with that kind of stuff, you're always positive. You're always happy. There's always, you have a smile that'll light up a room. Like, it really is something that is appealing to people who need to hear those messages. It's not, laser eyes and, videos where people were, just all the other stuff that everybody gets, exposed to. And so I love the way you handle that and the way you do your videos. And it's fun. Like, the stuff you talk about, you're excited. There's a joy there, which is really important. The other thing I love, and it makes perfect sense when you talk about, listening to stuff, listening to every novel, listening to every podcast, having that time to consume so much. Like, you're one of those people that I think of when I think about like the lore knowledge people. Like, a bunch of stuff. And so when a show comes out and everybody's losing their mind about some weird background detail, and you crank out a video, it's like, well, actually, this thing existed in this place, and this place, and this place, and it's not that unusual. But it's not done in a way that talks down to the people that either didn't know or got it wrong. It's just like, yeah, actually, fun fact, that still did exist. And I love the way you approach that, and that feels very intentional, and I would assume that it probably is. But talk a little bit about your approach to how you make content and videos, because again, there's a wide variety of how people do this, and I think your approach is really great. What goes into how you do that?
Yeah, and I don't make as many lore videos as I would like nowadays. That is my first love, though. I would see a lot of things that would make people kind of run to a weird negative place, and I was like, no, you don't have to go there every time. And my honest feeling is that if you read canon books, you can't be toxic. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to know the answer to the question. And I guess that's what it comes down to. There's a lot of things that were complained about that are very, very simply answered inside of the film or the show itself.
Sure.
But there is additional information, and I just wanted to make that available. And then also at the very beginning, before I started anything else, I even started a book club where I was trying to get people to dive into these canon books. And, because I was like, the more people I can get to start reading, like, just the better off we'll be as a community. And yeah, I honestly think it really did work. But yeah, that's the goal, is to get more people in, right? It's
Absolutely.
not... I feel like I'm the opposite of a gatekeeper. I'm like,
for sure.
Oh, you like this? You're gonna love this book. You know what I mean? If you grew up on the X-Wing books, oh, you got to jump into Alphabet Squadron because it's really, really good. Which, by the way, yeah, Alphabet Squadron.
I say all the time when it comes to the books, like, I grew up in that period where I had the kind of dark times, as we call it, people my age, between the original trilogy and when we finally got to the prequels. The special editions were a little bit of a thing, but like I read tons of the old Legends books growing up when I was in junior high and high school. And so original Thrawn trilogy, Jedi Academy trilogy, Truce at Bakura, all the terrible ones, all the good ones, like all that stuff. And that was a big part of my Star Wars growing up. And then I had kids and got a job, and like I'm a content creator and I do what I do, but I'm terrible about the books now. Like I'm not nearly as good at the books as I used to be. And I wanted it to be that audiobooks were the way for me to go, but they're not, because I multitask, and like I can listen to a podcast and multitask, but I listen to a book and I look up 10 minutes later and realize that I've been listening, but I haven't really heard any of it. And so then I have to go back. So I need the discipline of holding a physical book, still reading it. And I just don't make as much time for that. So like Alphabet Squadron is on my list because everybody I hear talk about it talks about how good they are. I read Brotherhood on my way to Celebration, and it was phenomenal. And it was the first, book in a minute that I read. Still haven't read Shadows of the Sith yet. I've heard it's fantastic. Haven't had a chance to do it. But I love that has been something that has informed the content that you make. And I love that there's that, again, the ability to invite people into it, not, reverse gatekeeping. That's a great way to, come sit at the table, come join me, come, if you like this, check out this other thing. Like that's such a good approach and such a good positive way to look at all those things.
One of the things that I found is that there is a bit of a weird kind of, I guess, rivalry with people who grew up with the expanded universe when they're looking at these canon books.
Sure.
And that's one of the big bridges that I do try to get. Absolutely. Because honestly, between them and now, like we have so much more in common than we don't. And so I had someone who was like attacking me left and right, and I was like, well, what's your favorite expanded universe book? And I told me, I was like, oh yeah, I love that book. You know what I mean? Like to date I'm at like 146 EU books.
Oh wow.
And like it's okay to love them both. If you like hamburgers and you like pizza, like that's okay. It's not you can only have one.
Nothing wrong with that. That's right. Well, and things have gotten so competitive, and I think you use that word, the competition between the different groups of people, whether it's, well, I'm a pre-Disney Star Wars fan, I'm a post, you can divide things into a million different camps and tribes, and that's not what Star Wars was designed to be. Star Wars has always been a unifying thing where we come together around this amazing story that inspires us and encourages us. But one of the questions that I had put on the list that I sent you, and I think this kind of dovetails nicely into it, is as a content creator, maybe this is kind of two-pronged. One, thinking about your process of how you consume a new something. If a new episode of Andor comes out, are you able to sit down and watch it and enjoy it? Or do you watch it with the, the content creator mode first, and then you come back and watch it a second time? The follow-up question is, as content creators, are we able to still enjoy Star Wars, or has having half of our brain always thinking about that impacted our ability to love something the way we loved it when we were kids?
Whew. Those are excellent questions. Yeah, I mean, I do have a content creator brain, which means you're always thinking every second of almost every day. You're like, oh, I can make a video on that, or on this, or could this mean that? If I made a video on this, would that do well? But I am able to turn it off. So whenever things drop, I have the benefit of being an insomniac. So something drops, I'll watch it twice back to back. First time just to take it all in, let my emotions, go. I don't take any notes. I don't do anything. And then I'll watch it again right after. And that also I find is kind of helpful because like I can get deeper, the second watch through. But not everyone has that luxury or cares enough, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
They're probably better off for it. But whether or not we can still like things, all of these content algorithms favor negativity.
Sure.
And that is That's the thing, and it's funny because that is Star Wars. Quick and easy is a path to the dark side. Forever will dominate you. If you start making negative videos, if you start hating on Kathleen Kennedy, and you get a boost of viewership because of it, well, are you going to keep doing it? That's literally the path to the dark side.
Right.
And so I don't know. It's just about resisting the dark. And while I probably, if I went negative, I probably could be full-time with content creation, to be honest. I've even done bait and switch videos where I start really negative and they start taking off, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna delete this video because I don't
That's right.
I don't want these people. My thing has always been community over anything else. So if the people commenting, watching, interacting, if I don't want to ever talk to those people, then they're probably not the crowd I should be trying to court. So yeah, we can absolutely like things, and love things and be critical of things. And I've never understood this idea that you couldn't be. I have videos up that's like, here are the 5 things I didn't like about Obi-Wan.
Yep.
That's one of my videos up. I've never been accused of anything negative. I don't know. It's strange. I think it's not whether or not you like or hate something. It's how you approach it and how you make people who are on the opposite side feel by your words. It's yeah, you can absolutely like something. You can absolutely hate something. Sure. Just don't be a dick to people. I don't know. I don't. It's not hard.
No, it's not. And that's what I use the expression all the time. I said there are plenty of things in Star Wars that I don't like, but when I see those things, I'm not burning a couch in my front yard, making sure the whole world knows about it. I just go, cool, that one's not for me. There are other things that are. And the other one I used, somebody in the chat mentioned they love the restaurant analogy, which is a lot of things on the menu. Not everybody orders the same thing. I think that's great. My other version of the restaurant analogy is the people who routinely make their entire presence just about hating Star Wars are like somebody who goes to a restaurant, doesn't like it, has a terrible experience, and instead of just not going to that restaurant again, they go to that restaurant 3 or 4 nights a week, still pay for it, and make sure everybody knows how much they don't like it. And we're like, dude, if you don't like it, why are you still here? Like, it's not that complicated. I've been to plenty of places I didn't like and went, cool, I don't have to come back. That's what
it makes me laugh so often when someone will wait till midnight and watch a show. They've hated every single episode of it. And they're still like, why are you here? Yeah, my analogy is it's like going into a field. And if you like it, it's like finding a flower. Beautiful flower. What do? You pick it up, you smell it, you show people, you take pictures, you put it on Instagram or whatever. Hey, look at this thing. I really love this thing. Like, I want to share it. All right, the opposite. You go into a field. There's a turd there. There's a piece of poop, and it stinks. and if you do you pick it up? Do you smell it over and over again? Do you take pictures and share it with everyone constantly? You bring it up in conversation all the time? Like, it's weird. I don't understand it. I love the restaurant analogy because that's, Star Wars has been my favorite restaurant, and once they sold, the restaurant came out with new dishes.
That's right.
I still love the old dishes. Sometimes a new dish comes out and I don't like it. I don't order it. And if I see someone else order it, I don't go over to their table and yell at them for it.
My favorite Star Wars book of all time is the Heir to the Empire original Thrawn trilogy. It's Legends. It came out in the 90s. It's not relevant and connected to anything. It's cheesy as hell because you've got Joruus C'baoth and Luke and the whole thing. But it was such a key, crucial part of my growing up Star Wars time, and I love it. But it doesn't affect my love of it that there's books now that are considered canon and this one isn't. And it doesn't affect my love of it that Thrawn shows up in Rebels and has an entirely new series of books about Thrawn, and it's going to end up being like, none of that threatens this thing that I like. Same thing. You go to the restaurant, hey, there's new Thrawn dishes. Well, I still like the old one. Cool, we'll make that for you. It's still available. Nobody took it away. But
there is extra excitement when you're watching the Bad Batch And when they show pictures of the facility, it says Mount Tantif at the bottom.
Mount
And you're like,
Tantus. Yes, it does. Yep.
mm,
And that's that little appetizer for me that's like, hey, we see you over there. And I love this, and I don't remember who originated with this. It certainly wasn't me, but I loved when there was so much outcry when the old books became, categorized as legends and there was going to be a new canon. I love the idea that somebody put out one time that said, it's almost like the Legends books were the stories that the canon characters would tell if they were sitting around a campfire one night, or if they were sitting around drinking one night and was like, yeah, I heard that Luke Skywalker once got cloned by a crazy old Jedi in a mountain. No, I heard that, this was this. Like, nobody said it can't be a part of your life somehow. Like, just enjoy this content that, we get at the grace of other people. Like, it's kind of a weird content complaining is a very weird thing to complain about in general. Like, people are out there working and making things, and if you don't like it, you don't have to enjoy it. But
my theory has always been that that Legends is like AO3 inside of the Star Wars universe. That's where people write their fanfic, and they're like, well, Luke Skywalker has a supermodel wife who's a dark side user and all this stuff. That's how I feel about
and
it.
Again, just to show that this is how it works, it doesn't offend me that your idea is different than mine, because guess what? We all get to come up with how we enjoy this imaginary world.
Yeah. And for the record, I love the expanded universe, and Jaina Solo is my all-time favorite Star Wars character. Makes me sad I can't make a lot of Legends content because the people take things in weird directions. But but I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that some of that can open up cans of worms that nobody wants to be opened. But yeah, that's just it. Star Wars is meant to be enjoyed, and like so many other, there's a lot of other things. DC's fine. I grew up a Superman fan. I grew up watching Batman before I knew who Iron Man was. But now I'm a Marvel person because Marvel did such a good job. I'm not mad about DC. I wish DC could be better. Maybe one day they'll get there. In the meantime, there's a lot of stuff that I don't watch because I go, it's not for me. I'll watch Star Wars again for the 9 millionth time. Like, we have so much control and we have so much agency in our lives at this state in the world. Somebody said the other week, if you had told me as a kid that when I was an adult, I was going to have access to a service where literally basically every Star Wars thing I could watch at any time I wanted to, I would have pooped my pants. Like, it would have been the best news because like you, I wore out the videotapes I had and had to wait years for movies and had to wait. And like, it just keeps coming. Like, we just keep getting fed this bounty of amazing, fun stuff. And yet we still have to find a way to be mad about it, which doesn't work for me.
Could you imagine being a kid and you find out, like, Disney is going to buy Star Wars. They're going to make a whole Star Wars land in their parks. They're going to bring on George is going to bring on Kathleen Kennedy, like the most celebrated, EP in film for every movie I grew up
with. Exactly.
And she's going to run things, and like, I don't know, it just sounds, and you're going to get new content every single year. Like, I don't know, I would have been doing backflips.
Yeah, it would have been, and it is. And we're so lucky to have what we have. And it's so exciting every time a new thing gets announced. Like, I don't know anything about Skeleton Crew, but by God, I'm excited about it. Let's see. Let's check it out. Let's,
What the hell is Skeleton? Like, I go to Celebration and they're like, good news, we wrapped on Skeleton Crew. And I was like,
exactly.
What?
Skeleton who?
You wrapped?
Exactly.
When did you yeah, it's I can't wait for that because
like,
I literally have no clue of like.
Yeah. I have this like, feeling or hope that it has like a, the old Amblin Entertainment movies, Goonies, like kid, kind of that middle young fun adventure something. And then you've got Jude Law thrown in there just for, good effect. He's probably going to be some handsome, roguish new Han Solo type, which again, cool. Let's do it. That's what Star Wars does.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yep, it's going to be good stuff. Well, I want to ask you a question, and then we're going to transition into our 10 question segment, which is always a lot of fun. But Podcast of the Whills started out as, kind of a deeper dive into Star Wars as a sacred text. And, what does it mean? Where's the deeper meaning in Star Wars? And so the question that I love to ask my guests is, do you have, or can you tell us about a time where you had a Star Wars spiritual experience? And for me, that really boils down to a time when Star Wars affected you on some deeper level, more meaningful level than just, oh, it's these movies I loved. Sometime where it was something bigger or something more.
I mean, honestly, there's a few of them, and I mean, Star Wars is intentionally so, modern day mythology.
Mhm.
And if you kind of like go back to like the oral tradition of passing down stories, they were meant to make that connection. They were meant to apply to people living in that time. They were meant to be fluid, and since they were told verbally, they would change and evolve and grow over time. And for me, someone who grew up, born in '87, so I grew up in the '90s. If you grew up, anytime before the prequels came out, Star Wars is about Luke Skywalker, right? It's not about Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, Luke, my absolute favorite character, following his journey, and when it really clicked for me that the reason that Luke won was he threw down his lightsaber and said, the only way to win is not to fight.
Mhm.
Because the only way to win in fighting is to attain more power, and the more power I attain, the more corrupted I'll become. And the only way to win is to, let this go. And then that echoes into the future where I forget about that whole thing. And I'm chasing certain dreams that, while may benefit me in bragging rights terms, won't benefit my life, my soul, my spirit, my family, all that type of thing. And The Last Jedi hit me super hard. I saw Luke, and now that I'm older, I understand fighting for something and failing. I understand what it's like when, you're running as fast as you can and it's just not fast enough, and the thing that you thought was going to save everything ended up ruining it. And the thought to give it up, then maybe I am the problem, maybe this is the problem, but the realization of no that was a lesson. You have to continue learning lessons, and you'll never stop learning lessons. It's not an action figure. It's not a video game where you get a buff and you have it forever. All this stuff is active. It's all fluid. It's all in motion. And in The Last Jedi, Luke did everything he did was the most Jedi-like thing possible, which also amazed me.
Yes. It's fantastic. I love that so much. And I agree with you. And I've had times where I've talked about my moments, but one that I come back to more and more, certainly as I age and as a parent, like, not only Luke showing us what it means to try and fail and have to live with that, but the mentor stuff, the stuff with Rey, the stuff where he revisits Kylo, when he's talking to Yoda and, we are what they grow beyond, that's a parent. That's me as a parent with 4 daughters. Like, I want them to be better than me. I want them to grow beyond me. I want them to experience more and engage the world. And I hope somewhere along the line, I don't fail them. I hope somewhere along the line, I don't send them down the dark path or whatever it is. And, it's truly humbling to see something that I've loved for the entire 44 years I've been alive still teach me messages like that and teach me new messages like that. Like Bad Batch, the parent crap in the Bad Batch, man, hits me in the feels every time. Like, those guys with Omega, like, what are we doing here? Like, it's so good. Obi-Wan with Leia in the Kenobi show.
Oh,
like, I mean, I'm a girl dad. You're killing me, Smalls. What are we doing here? So I love that you have that perspective, and I love that you shared that moment with us. So thank you very much for doing that. What we're going to do now is we're going to transition into the 10 questions. And this is kind of like inside the actor's studio. People come on, ask you some fun questions. And as I borrow the phrase from Pete, I'm not going to judge you, but somebody on the internet probably will. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just fun. So question number 1, what is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book? You can do one or you can do all 3. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, movie The Last Jedi, TV
Okay.
show. It's so hard between Rebels and Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Being such a Force lore junkie, but Andor was just so goddamn good. And then when it comes to book, that bounces around too. But when I read the High Republic's, why is the name escaping me? The second of the main books,
Okay.
Rising Storm.
Mm-hmm.
That the journey you take in that book, the love that you've carried over for the characters from the three previous books, and how it ends is such a gut punch. I love that book, as well as the final Alphabet Squadron book.
Okay.
So
very good. Excellent.
Sorry,
Excellent
some
choices.
of those were non-committal.
No. That's awesome. If you could be any character from Star Wars, who would it be and why?
If I could be any character,
Yes.
probably I'd have to be Hondo, because Hondo he has a joy, he has a lightness about him that you can't shake, and he's
Absolutely.
seen some stuff and he's still smiling.
Mhm.
And he's just delusional enough that it's a good thing.
That's right. There's just enough crazy in there that, makes him fun at parties and also probably helps him avoid all the terrible stuff he's seen.
Yeah. And ain't nobody
like
got
that.
space charisma like Hondo,
Correct.
Lando's up
he
there,
wants,
but
yeah.
everyone else who's up there is good looking, and they can skate on that. Like Hondo is just pure charisma.
Yeah. I feel like Hondo gives off Star Wars Jack Sparrow vibes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your favorite non-Star Wars movie?
Favorite non-Star Wars movie is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay, that is an excellent choice. Good for you. What is it about that movie? What hits you so much for that?
I love science fiction, and it's lightly science fiction, right? But you'll probably notice that most of my favorite things are always kind of slow burns. They're more cerebral in nature. They make people go inward and examine why they are the way they are, and try to separate nature from nurture and figure out how both of those things apply. And that's just my jam. That's my bread and butter.
I love that. That's awesome. It's a good think piece. If you could vacation on one Star Wars planet, which planet would you vacation on?
Do I get to choose the time period? Because Scarif is nice for a lot of the time. It takes a hard turn.
That's right.
It takes a hard turn later. Or Naboo. I mean, you can't go wrong with Naboo. It's just gorgeous.
That's right. Can't beat Space Italy. It's pretty good. Who is your favorite Star Wars droid?
Mr. Bones. I freaking love Mr. Bones. For anyone who has not read the Aftermath trilogy, first book was written really oddly. I didn't like the book, but I loved Mr. Bones, and yeah, he's just a delightfully murderous droid.
Murderous bot, absolutely. If you could own one ship from the Star Wars galaxy, what would it be?
Ooh, if I could own one ship, it'd be Luthen's ship, because that ship is just slick. It's got that Corellian engineering style, but it is symmetrical. And it's got some tricks up its sleeves.
Absolutely, got some Tony Stark vibes with the lasers and the bombs and all that stuff.
Also, shout out to Legends with the Stealth X. They just look mean, but if I'm not force sensitive, I probably wouldn't be able to operate it super well. So,
what is? And I'm gonna give you this one just for fun. What is your Star Wars unpopular opinion?
Star Wars unpopular opinion.
That's right.
It honestly depends on the age of the people that I'm hanging out with, but probably the most unpopular opinion that I've run across is that while the Jedi as an organization made a lot of mistakes and were responsible for their own downfall, they're not responsible for Anakin's fall, and listen, if you have religious trauma, I get it. but don't put all that on the Jedi. That's weird.
Sure.
You know, like they didn't do that.
Okay. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What is your go-to Star Wars quote?
Go-to Star Wars quote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go-to as in I say it the most often.
Yes,
or...
the one you use the most often.
Okay, well, this often happens with my wife, and she says something from the other room, and I pull a Vader, and I go, "What?" I say that all the time.
I love that. That's the kind of stuff that I do. So I track with that completely. What is your favorite Star Wars word? A word in Star Wars. Yep. What's a word that exists in Star Wars that you just love?
The first thing that came to my mind is more of a meme because I actually hate it. If you read the new Thrawn books, there's a character who has like winglets on his face, and the word winglets is used so many times in that book that's all I can think of. And it's like
just wearing it out,
wriggled with joy, and you're like, stop with the winglets.
Please stop saying winglets. That's outstanding. And the last one, what is your favorite Star Wars sound effect and why?
Star Wars sound effect. The obvious answer is the is Boba Fett's dubstep bomb, because he'd be dropping that bass.
That's right.
But my favorite Star Wars sound might be the squeal that Lando makes when the Sarlacc crawls up his leg. I can't do it, but like I can hear it very clearly in my head every single time.
And every time you hear it when you watch that movie, it gives you just that little peak of joy, like he did the thing.
Exactly. That and when and also Return of the Jedi when Naim Nub says Ataheri Muriara Muria Amukia, huh? I don't know why. That gives me joy.
It's good. It's those little things, they just stick in your brain and you can't get away from them. And that's what it's all about. That's what Star Wars is all about. The parts of it that stick in your brain that make you happy and make you go, man, I love this. This is fun. And that's what it's supposed to be about. Well, Brandon, this has been such a fun conversation. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me tonight, to share a little bit about your story. Before we get out of here, I know you said you've had some changes in some of the shows and stuff you're doing, but give us your plugs. Give us what you've got coming up or what you want people to find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, real quick, another Return of the Jedi sound that gives me joy came to mind, and it's the singer in Jabba's palace that goes Alawa. I love that guy, and he gives me joy. But yeah, you can find me. I'm Darth Choco on TikTok, Darth Choco on YouTube. That's where a lot of my new content will be going. Darth Choco IG on Instagram. The previous one got deleted by Instagram for no reason, so I had to start over.
Man.
And Darth Choco 7 on Twitter, where you can find me sometimes get sassy with people.
Yeah. Good stuff. I highly encourage everybody to check out all your content and just follow you and take it all in, because like I said, you do a great job. You bring fun positivity, and I'm thankful for the stuff you do. And again, I'm thankful for you being with me tonight. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who watched, who listened, who hung out with us tonight. We appreciate you. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter. And I look forward to seeing all of y'all again soon.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.